Evening, folks. Good evening. A little bit different tonight. Normally play the bug for a minute, but that could be the problem where it gives us the old syncing issues. Yeah. So hopefully we won't have any of that tonight. It's Tuesday, the 18th of November, 2014. Oh yes. And myself and Mr. Dibbers are here again for this week's edition of Vaper Scene. And we've got all sorts of stuff, really. And there's going to be a choice soon about what happens. Don't forget you can tweet the show using hashtag Vaper Scene. I'm ready and waiting to show your tweets. Yes, I am. And we've got the latest edition of MFT with some acrylic turning tonight with Mr. Dibley. Yes, should be good. And depending on what happens, depending on what the feeling is in chat, we may or may not have a little vapor trial that I did last week. But all that has to be after the titles. So here they are. It's Vaper Scene.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Yes, good evening, good evening, good evening on this lovely dark winter's night. So I just saw a tweet there. I'll have a look at it in a second. Yes, lots of stuff to talk about tonight. The Scottish Parliament were sitting down earlier today and they were debating the whole e-cig scenario. So I've got a bit of VT. In fact, I've got the entire thing. But that's an hour, so that's too long. But I've kind of split it up into sections. So we're going to have one of those very shortly, and then we'll see how we feel about that. And then in part 2, I've got a bit of a vapor trial that I did last week. I actually recorded it twice, and you'll see why when you see it. Yeah. And then, of course, we do have Mr. Dibley with some acrylic turning that he did. Yeah. Isn't that right, Mr. Dibley?
It is, yeah. I'll tell you, you'll see a little bit later. It's evil stuff. I didn't realise just how evil until I put the chisel in it and stuff. I think I called it something else while I was recording. But yeah, that's come out.
Good. I just saw a comment in chat there. Vaping Loon, live via 4G. Has nobody got fibre? No, I blinking haven't got fibre.
I do.
Garry Dibley does. I do not have fibre. So the best thing I can do is to go out on 4G. And just to give you an indication, I did a speed test before we came live. And I was getting 30 meg up and 32 meg down. Sorry, 26 meg down and 32 meg up. Now, I can't get that on my broadband. All I get is 6 meg down and half a meg up. That's why we go out on 4G. Because it is just so much quicker. Stable, I have to say. We've been doing this for about 9 months now over 4G. And it works quite well, doesn't it, Garry?
It certainly does, yeah. I was surprised by those results, actually.
Yeah, so was I. But Garry is coming in on broadband, so I'm not kind of using both. Anyway, I digress. But just to answer that question that was in there. Yes, there's a very good 4G signal in the Sheffield/Barnsley area. Yeah. Although earlier on it wasn't, but then tonight it is. Less people on at this time of night. So let us crack on with a bit of VT from the Scottish Parliament. It's very interesting, I have to say. There's some names there. I've cut out all the introductions and stuff, so we'll have a little bit of that, and then we'll come back and we'll have some comments. Yes, so as you're watching it, send comments into chat or into the Twitter feed. And now we've got, let me just show this, some of these tweets. Yeah, we'll have this one. There we go. Let's have that. Yes, so Jester, Vaper Scene is now showing on VTTV. Come and see Garry whack it in. Ooh, yes, you're not going to see any whacking it in. It's Garry. But what you will see, I'm all over the place tonight. There we go, that one. What you will see later on is Garry playing with his chuck. Yes. Anyway.
And I ran that in. Yeah.
Let's crack on with a VT from the Scottish Parliament. Enjoy.
In regards to the Scottish Government's position in regards to e-cigarettes, and possibly I could ask Claire McDermott to explain. It is my understanding there's no law against selling this to children, but it is self-regulating. But as we know, if anyone walks into a shop, they may purchase something, and it concerns me that children could walk into a shop and purchase an e-cigarette. I know the Scottish Government is considering a ban on the sale and is doing a consultation. Could Claire tell us where we are in regard to consultation?
Yeah, the consultation launched on the 10th of October and will run until the 2nd of January. We await programme for government in terms of what a legislative timetable might be for that, but we will seek to consider the consultation responses as soon as possible. But the Minister has made clear that he's committed, this is one area he's committed to bringing legislation forward on.
Thank you for that. Can I ask the wider panel?
Well, some of the other things, Richard, you know, because you mentioned the recommendation to ban e-cigarettes. I think there's some UK legislation already in place for that. Can we have some comment and feedback to Richard's general questions at the beginning? I think a number of questions arise out of that. Would there be any question? Catherine, Devlin.
I feel like I ought to respond on this one, representing the industry as I do. Just in the broadest possible terms, if I may, though, I think with the precautionary principle, as expressed by the concerns that you've raised and the suggestions that you've raised, we have to be enormously careful that we don't do more harm than good. And we've been very pleased to see the Scottish Parliament's approach to this, which is to consult widely and bring forward very few ideas initially and take time to gather further evidence before doing anything too drastic. The risk, if we were to remove everything from the market, is that we will see all those people who've made the switch to electronic cigarettes potentially returning to tobacco smoking, which would clearly not be good for public health on a population level or for those individuals.
No financial or any other conflict of interest or interest in what the industry has to say on this. But electronic cigarettes offer a huge potential benefit to public health by helping smokers to shift to an alternative source of nicotine. And if all smokers in Britain were to do that, we would be talking of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of premature deaths avoided. So it's very important, I think, when and controlling the inevitable abuses of the market that will come with electronic cigarettes and the inherent risks in the products, which we know relatively little about still, though we do know that they're much less hazardous than tobacco. It's important to manage those risks, but not in a way that throws the baby out with the bath. There is a huge potential public health prize in these products.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairman. And I would agree with what John has said in the context that UK government has taken an approach which is as evidence-based as possible, recognising that there isn't as much of an evidence base as we would like to make good decisions in relation to this category of products. But what we have tried to do is to think about the risks and the benefits. So rather than banning a product which, as John says, has great potential, we've taken a more measured approach, thinking about what regulatory framework and structure is necessary to enable these products to be made available. Thinking about risks and benefits, the position that the Department of Health is that continuing to smoke is the riskiest thing that anyone can do and costs 80,000 lives a year in the UK. So anything that can help to manage those risks are important that we evaluate carefully and think about the potential for benefits. As John said, the market is such that we can't be confident that the range of products available are safe and therefore can't recommend their use to people. But what we don't want to do is to remove from the market something that has potentially a great value if the regulatory framework is such that we can be confident that the products are of quality and will help people to cut down, to quit and to reduce the harm of smoking.
But yes, Claire McDermott?
Hi. Probably likewise recognise and develop in the consultation paper the potential for e-cigarettes to act as a cessation tool. However, we do, as Catherine said, we don't feel that there's enough evidence yet to make a decision on electronic cigarettes. And that's why we asked the question document. We're still seeking people's views to inform future policy development. And just to highlight, one of the reasons we didn't take action just now is in recognition that individual organisations, service providers can act to implement their own policies if there was felt that there was an urgent need to have e-cigarettes banned in their premises.
I think Richard made the point about the sale of this to children and young people in terms of, I think we're clear on the effects of nicotine on that group, are we not? Or a younger group?
Chairman, if I could just make a point picking up on that. First to say that in the UK we will be consulting very shortly on an age of sale restriction of 18 and a proxy purchase prohibition, so for adults buying these products for younger people. And those regulations, if passed, will be in place next year. So that's the intention in the UK. I think John is probably better placed to talk about the impact of these products on younger people.
I think none of us would want any of our own children or anybody else's children to start using nicotine for no good reason. Includes electronic cigarette use and of course includes smoking. And I don't know what the figures are for Scotland, but certainly across Britain, by the age of 25, 40% of people have been smokers and 25% still are. So we have the dilemma in young people's use of electronic cigarettes of, if it's young people using electronic cigarettes who would never have become smokers, then that's a negative step for their health and for population health. If the use is predominantly among young people who would otherwise smoke or are already smokers, then the same potential benefits come to them as come to adults who make the switch. So I think it's a very difficult balance to make. At the moment, the evidence from the Robert West smoking, no, he doesn't look at children, sorry, from the ASH surveys carried out by, surveys based on, I think carried out by YouGov, the evidence from young people is that use among never smokers is extremely low, of the order of 1 or 2%.
Catherine, Dave.
Yeah. I just wanted to make it very clear to the committee that we've always asked for a mandated age restriction. We introduced the voluntary code in 2010. We're very pleased to have seen that it's gone wider than our membership, but we absolutely support the mandating of an age restriction for this. The difficulty that we're hearing from enforcement officers and indeed retail colleagues who are out there in the marketplace selling these products is that without it being mandated, the voluntary code is not enforceable because retail outlets into which members or a seller's products are placed, they will not necessarily respect it unless it's a mandated age restriction. So we do support that, while obviously completely agreeing with Professor Britton's perspective the benefits, potential benefits to children who are already smoking. That said, I think it's really important that the committee recognise that there should be, or they should seek to be, no difference between the treatment of the nicotine-containing electronic cigarettes and those that don't contain any nicotine. And to date, all of the regulatory proposals and frameworks that we've seen from pretty much anywhere in the world unfortunately fail to make that clear at all, so that the products that don't contain any nicotine are left frequently outside of regulatory discussions. We think that's a significant mistake, because at the end of the day these are products for inhalation, and just as with the nicotine containing ones, we would not like to see children being sold non-nicotine containing electronic cigarettes either. Thank you.
Yes, Richard?
Can I make crystal clear, I'm not attacking e-cigarettes. I know a number of smokers within this building who have actually given up and have been on e-cigarettes. I'm not one of them. Right, that's a confession I've got to make. But the basic situation, I turn to Professor Britton's comment, and I hope I wrote it down right. We know little of what is in the cigarette. Can you explain to us what is in the cigarette? That's a concern that people have. What is within the liquids? I know you can get licorice, strawberry, raspberry, or whatever flavours you want. What else is in that liquid?
Okay, the basic recipe, if you like, is that it's predominantly propylene glycol, which is well understood. It's been studied for many years, and Professor Ritton's perhaps more in a position to talk to that than I am. You have vegetable glycerin, or glycerol, which again is fairly well understood. These are both GRAS, generally recognised as safe. You have a very, very small concentration of nicotine. I use quite a high concentration at 2.4%, so very low nicotine. And you have flavourings. Now, these are usually food flavourings, although in the case of tobacco flavours, there are sometimes flavourings from Tobacco Absolute, which obviously falls outside of food flavouring standards. There can be food colourings in some of them, and we're in the process at the moment, as the committee may be aware of creating a pre-standard, a publicly available specification with the British Standards Institute, which seeks to include emissions gathering and analysis, so that we can not only know and understand fully what's actually there in the liquid, but also, far more importantly, what's delivered to the user in the vapour that you inhale. So we're looking at gathering the emissions, analysing the analytes that are present in that emission, and then also doing a full toxicological health risk assessment on that, so that we will have a better understanding of the impact on the human body from using the products. And it is with a certain amount of shame that I can't provide that data to you today before the products went on sale. That is an error, that is a mistake. We should have done this already, but it's been a process of growth for this industry. Many of the businesses in the sector are not sort of professional businesses. They're often created by vapers who just got really excited about the products and then decided to create a business. And now it's necessary to try and push some standards on them, to force the standards up, so that they can know exactly what went into the product, what comes out of it, and what effect that's going to have on the human body.
I think part of the problem with this debate is we're not talking about one standard product. We're talking about up to 500 brands and well over 7,000 flavourings. And some of those flavourings, although approved for food use, work quite differently in the body when heated and inhaled. So I think our position has been that we would love to see people who are addicted to tobacco being able to use these products instead of tobacco, or to quit a tobacco addiction. But there are so many unknowns, and I think the little evidence that we have supports both an optimistic and a cautious approach at the moment. So we believe that regulation needs to look at maximising the potential benefits and minimising the potential harm, and these products must work towards our vision for a generation free from tobacco in 2034.
Andrew.
Thank you. It's very heartening as a GP to hear the view of the industry that you want also to make sure that these are not available to our children. Certainly my interest as a clinician was first sparked in this when I had a parent come in with a primary school child who'd been found in the playground with an e-cigarette. And that's wrong on so many. So I'm very keen for this to be removed. I'm very keen not to see in shops and displays this at sort of a children's height, to be able to take these sort of primary coloured products and take it off the shelf and find out what they are. Also to move to actually get the capsules, the actual nicotine containing liquid into a child safe form, so there's no risk to our children that they may accidentally get hold of this and ingest this, because although yes, nicotine can cause vomiting and things in overdose, it's not guaranteed that actually the child will bring this up and may suffer harm excuse me, due to nicotine. It's also heartening to hear that the industry are keen to do a full health study on industry. My concern as a clinician is that not sort of after the horse has bolted, the huge use of this, and yet we don't have good evidence as to the safety of these. I absolutely accept that e-cigarettes will do less harm than continued tobacco use, but I'm concerned that this doesn't always take someone who is using tobacco and take them down the path to either 100% e-cigarette usage or quitting nicotine altogether as an addiction. There's emerging evidence certainly that e-cigarettes are being used to reduce someone's reliance on tobacco, but actually possibly then maintaining that tobacco use longer. And the evidence, certainly in terms of clinical harm, is that the length of period of using tobacco is actually potentially more harmful than the intensity of using tobacco, and therefore that's a significant concern. There is a need, and certainly the BMA are very keen to see quick development, or as quick as research ever allows, of more evidence around this, to the point that I as a GP can feel confident to recommend this product to my patients as part of a nicotine replacement therapy and as part of smoking cessation. But that has to be as part of the whole gambit. The evidence on all our nicotine replacement therapies is that they're more effective when they're combined with behavioural therapies rather than just being able to be taken off the supermarket shelf. So we need to actually use this as a product to help reduce the impact of tobacco and not take our eyes off the fact that actually this huge amount of harm, as you've demonstrated, of tobacco use in the UK. So I want to see a state where the evidence is there, but that evidence is going to take a very long time to develop, and I think we need to be brave and move forward faster than that.
Catherine Devon and then Professor Britton.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, John. Several points raised there. Thank you, Andrew. First of all, child resistance. That's actually been required by law up until July, when we found that actually it's not for the products that are under 2.5%, but in our code and in our standard, we are insisting on that still. So there should be no product containing nicotine out there that is not child resistant. And indeed, for our members, we do actually verify that. We check that with a government expert to make sure that it is. There's a significant difference between quitting smoking and quitting nicotine use. Nicotine, as I'm sure Professor Britton would agree, is very similar to caffeine in terms of its dependence potential and its effect on the body. So actually quitting smoking is essential for the health benefits. Quitting nicotine, not such a big issue in our view. Then also the notion of continuing tobacco use. Of course, using an electronic cigarette is not tobacco use. Tobacco use is where you've got the potential sort of health risks and so forth. But the continued use of e-cigarettes removes the harms associated with smoking of tobacco. So it's not quite the same issue. And then finally, the behavioural support point, just very quickly, I'm sorry. Louise Ross at the Leicester Stop Smoking Service has seen some very significant success with recommending electronic cigarettes. Well, not so much recommending, but educating her clients about electronic cigarettes and making it possible for them to access these products. But I totally agree with you that we need more research and we need to move fast on it. Thank you.
Just one point of clarification on the caffeine point. I would agree that nicotine is probably about as hazardous as caffeine in terms of harm to the body. It's in the same order of magnitude. I think nicotine is probably more. Nicotine addiction is harder to break, I suspect. I would just pick up on Andrew. One was the dual use concern, and the other the behavioural support issue. On dual use, That's an argument which has been advanced very widely against electronic cigarettes, that they are encouraging people to continue to smoke but just use the electronic cigarette at times where it's difficult to smoke. But on the other hand, we actually actively recommend and encourage dual use of licensed nicotine products for use in exactly the same way. And nice guidance on harm reduction, pH 45, which came out at the beginning of last year, I think, does the same. And the argument is that whilst cutting down on smoking, I agree, probably has trivial impact on health outcomes because it's the first cigarette of the day that does most of the damage. It's more complex than that, but there's a certain truth in that. What we do know is that people who dual use are far more likely to proceed to quit smoking than people who don't. So I think it's just the learning that if I can go for 4 hours through a meeting, say a morning here, and not smoke by using an electronic cigarette, then why can't I do all day? So there's a learning process in that, and we encourage it with NRT, and it seems to me completely wrong to call it a bad thing for electronic cigarettes. The other issue is behavioural support. I entirely agree with Andrew that if you want to give up smoking, you are most likely to succeed if you use proper pharmacological support, which in my view can include electronic cigarettes, and as a clinician I do recommend them. For people who have tried nicotine products, medicinal products before and haven't found them satisfactory, or other medication plus behavioural support. But the fact is that each year only about 8 or 9% of our smokers go into those services. The other 90% struggle on their own. What electronic cigarettes do is make that first step towards substituting cigarettes possible for people without engaging with medical services. Now, I agree, the more that we could persuade to go through the full Monty of NHS support, the better. But I would much rather that smokers who are not otherwise going to engage with that try an electronic cigarette and realise maybe there is a way out of smoking here, than not at all. Robert West has described smoking as being like in a nightclub when the fire breaks out. You just need a way out. It doesn't matter what it is. And electronic cigarettes could well be a way out for many smokers who would not otherwise find an exit.
Yeah, so that was the first 20 minutes of the session in the Scottish Parliament today. We're going to go to the ads. We're a bit late going to the ads, but we're going to go to the ads. When we come back, I'll share with you some of the comments that have been flicking through chat as that has been going on. I see to find my adverts. They're here somewhere. Here they are, yes. So we'll see you in 2 minutes.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
And we are back in the room. Hello, hello, hello. Right, yes, interesting kind of first section there from the Scottish Parliament. And as chat was scrolling through, I was viciously, very quickly copying and pasting into my laptop here. Some comments. Max Strum said, "Go Catherine." Yeah, I mean, she was giving it some, wasn't she? As too was John Britton, who is a complete legend, really. Ridian said they have done this session without a white paper consultation. They are ahead of the game. Leanna Lawless, I asked earlier, wonder how many vapers who started around TBD time keep smoking a few so they don't taste horrid if they're forced back. And I remember when I first started vaping, and then kind of 2 days later I thought I'll just try one, and it was rank, didn't like it at all. Leal TT, first time here, looks nice show. Thank you, Leal TT, and welcome aboard. We're all very, very happy that you've come on to have a look. Graham Gords, how much evidence do they need? Yes, Blaze, Mean has improved his position somewhat. I tend to agree with you there, yeah. He seems to be a little bit calmer, doesn't he? Yeah. Now, Hi-Fi Stud, Mr. Dawn, just a crying shame there was no non-industry vaping advocate there. And I totally agree. It would have been nice to have people who were not either industry, just vapors. Yeah. Would have been much nicer to have some people there as well. Jan, 0256, I find it unpalatable that 21 to 25-year-olds are classed as children. Totally agree there as well. Totally agree. Rob, now I bet he prescribes Champix. Yes, so we're saying about it's very much sitting on the fence, the guy from the BMA, Andrew, very much sitting on the fence. First law, do no harm. Well, how many people have had big issues with Champix? We know that it causes some severe psychological disorders in certain people. Not heard that too much about e-cigs. In fact, not at all. Strange that. Yeah. Leanna Lawless again, I think his eaters should take Holland to court, and Hi-Fi Stud agrees. Yeah. Dripperbox, he thinks vapors need a doctor to tell them what to do. Exactly. We don't need a doctor to tell us what to do. We just need a doctor to support what we need to do and what we want to do. What do you make of all this, Mr. Dibley?
Yes, I mean, deep thought after that. It doesn't take much to get me into deep thought. I made a few notes during that. My first note was be a twat, which I probably shouldn't have said that, really. But it was first impressions. He was he was sat there like he was there just to make up space, if you get me. You know, when you sat at one of those really dull, boring meetings and your brain just turns off and you start doodling on your pad. Yeah, that's what I got from him. I must say, Catherine is an absolute legend, as was John Britton. She speaks so much sense and seems to really command the audience, if you get me. She's putting very valid and very good points across. And she's very much like a L'Oreal. She shuts them the hell up, if you know what I mean, and just bets them back down. The big one in there again is, you know, think of the children. And I think at one point that guy said that there was a primary school child that had wandered in with an e-cig. Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, he probably might have done, you know what I mean? But can you see that? You know, if you were an owner of a shop and this is a 6-year-old stood in front of you with their pocket money asking for an e-cig, do you know what I mean? That's just like, if anything, they probably stole it from their parents. And their parents should keep the stuff locked away, as any responsible parent should do. You know, again, the argument with, you know, the children and what they can swallow and this, that and the other and what they can ingest and blah, blah, blah. In my environment here, in the workshop, there are far more dangerous substances, as there are in any home, that my daughter could walk in and touch, pick up, swallow. Do you know what I mean? At 6, she knows. Benny's workshop, you come in if you're asked to, and when you do, you stand there and you don't touch anything, especially if the lathe's spinning, unless Daddy wants to teach you how to do it to make lots of little things for him, which will come. But it's that one's just getting long in the tooth and boring, to be honest with you. The most, I think, the point that Catherine touched on, that I think is a very valid point about new vendors coming into the market. A lot of the new vendors she described as vapers who have seen, felt, touched, used the stuff for themselves, and have developed such an interest that they want to take that out to the general public. Not only having put a bloody good chunk of money into doing that, because it don't come free, but the advice and this and the other that somebody like that can pass on, I don't think you can train anybody into it, if you know what I mean. I think it's a very valid point, and the guys that are out there, they're the guys who effectively, bands and this and the other, are going to be the ones that are hammered. It's just true. I wish they would stop using the quit word, and that's the one thing that really gripes me. The quit thing is just a complete pain in the arse. I don't, who's to decide I want to quit? The only thing I want the doctor to tell me is, yes, sir, I've had a feel, cough, they're fine. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. I don't want them to tell me that, this is to quit. If someone tells me that's to quit, you can kiss my big, fat, hairy bottom, sir. Lots of good things. It was a very, like I say, it's always good to sit round a table and have a masturbate. And that's what they were doing. And I think it was well balanced, personally. It was well balanced.
I think you need to put a breath in between the mass and the other word.
Oh, do we? Okay, sorry. When I go. That's even worse.
Yes.
But yeah, to sum it up, that was my impression of that. First time I've seen it, off the cuff. That's what I thought.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Mr. Dibley, for those insights. Now, chat, you have now got a choice, because I've got more of that. If you want more of that, but it means knocking other things off the list for tonight's show. Now, Garry is going to put the link for the entire thing into chat, so you can watch it at your leisure, or you can have another 20 minutes, or you can have a Vaper Trails episode, or you can have the next episode of MFT, but I can't fit it all in because we've actually waffled quite a lot about this subject tonight. So, yes, chat, you let us know what to see next. You can either have the next episode of MFT, you can have my Vaper Trails video, or you can have another 20 minutes of the Scottish Parliament. It's entirely up to you. Yes. So let us know. What do you reckon, Garry? What do you think you should do?
I don't care. Anything's good. The audience decide. It's like pay-per-view. Actually, we should make it pay-per-view. Yes. Feel free. Choose. We'll do the ads.
Oh, now I've got a little comment here from Neil. I see very overweight PH people telling us how to live. Yeah. Now, I'm not a slim guy, but I don't say to somebody who's large, you can't eat that burger. Put that burger down. Oh, now Yoda said MFT, Vaping Loon, MFT, Lamental, MFT, MFT, MFT. They all want MFT. Do as a song, Marco. That ain't going to happen. I'm telling you that now. It's not going to happen. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do then. Let's go to this cam. Yes. What we'll do is we'll have the last set of ads, and then when we come back, we will have this week's MFT, which is 18 minutes long. So I need to pull my finger out and go to the ads. See you in 2.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Vapers, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee and free delivery anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
RY4 Radio.
And now it's back to Vaper Scene on Vaper Trails TV. Vaper Scene is sponsored by Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Okie dokie, we're back for part 3. Yes, part 3 of this week's show. And chat have spoken. Thank you very much. I love this. I love this show. I love chat. I love the fact that we can interact with you guys and it's immediate. Well, 60-second delay. But chat have spoken and chat would like to see this week's episode of MFT. So, Mr. Dibley, introduce your own VT.
Yes, there's lots of things in this week. Me with this. Enjoy.
Well, good evening, and we are back down on the bench for another week, but we won't be here for long, and for the next few weeks we will be heading over to the lathe. Now, as you can see before you, we have boxes of acrylic, and the one I'm interested in is this little one down here. Let me move this out of the way. Out. You voted and the acrylic won. I think it was 50-50, but the final sort of email that come through was from Peter Matchett, and he's the guy who actually made this box that we did. So Peter Matchett is the guy who made this. Thank you very much, sir. Now I can name you. And he was the final sort of chappy that, and I thought if he said it after making it, lovely box, I'm going to do the acrylic for you. So what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it. I wanted to show you some stuff down on the bench to start with, just so you can understand the sort of thing, the challenges I'm facing, because at the moment, this moment, I don't have a bloody clue. Let me talk to you about the plan a little bit, and I need to pop away from the bench. Pop back. Right, the plan is that we are going to be, I'm going to be getting I've ordered a clone, a bottom button clone, because I'm going to use that as the donor for this mod. And the aim is to probably get a bottom button in here, like so. Now, I'm still deciding whether to go 18350 or 18650. As of yet, I don't know. As you can tell, I've probably walked away from the bench again. What I intend to do on the other end is use this the little Fat Daddy jobby on the other end. Now, I can either make this sort of extremely tiny
which will probably give me a lot more sort of working room, or I can go 18650. I won't know until the clone arrives. Now I haven't got that as yet, but what I'm going to need to do is change a lot of the tooling as to what I use normally. One of the challenges, the sort of type acrylic I normally work on, is this size, and as you can see, this one is a big old bugger of a chunk. This stuff here is a poly acrylic, whereas this is a if you like, an acrylic. I tell you what the difference is. This one turns and you can cut this thing like butter. It's really nice to turn. The only things you get is you get a lot of what they call bird's nest kick up. It's very forgiving. This stuff here isn't, and it can shatter and all sorts. It is an absolute shit. I mean, it's not to turn. So there's our first challenge. Second challenge is it doesn't like drilling and it generates a lot of heat, so we've got to be very careful. Third challenge is how the hell do I turn this? My normal, now you have to excuse the chuck because the chuck is in need of a good cleanup. Luckily this chuck, this is a Nova G3 chuck. The normal bits that I use when I'm turning, if you like, any smaller bits, is this set of jaws. And when they're at full expanse, it's just about the right size to get a big job in, you know, the little ones. That ain't going to fit in there. So I'm going to have to switch out to the other set of jaws, which, as you can see, have been used for wood recently. And you have to excuse me. So I'm going out to these bad boys. And when these bad boys are in place, I will have enough to sort of grip a corner on each of those. I think. I won't know until I get them in place. I might open it up and have a look. So just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, the reason I need to decide on the length is because it depends on this. I can either put it in the chuck and spin, but I've got to allow a certain amount of waste off cut, or I can put it in something that's called a mandrel. Now my previous mandrel, which is this one, as you can see, it was not the best. I got it as a cheapie, just to see how they run. I now have a new super duper mandrel, and I bought myself a new revolving tailstock to be teamed with this. And what this gives me the ability to do is jack this straight in where the chuck would go, drill this straight through and centre mount it on there. It doesn't give me a lot of flexibility then in terms of I need to work out what's going to happen when I get the bits here, and then this bad boy is going to be running through this once it's rounded off. So it's then, because if that's centre mounted, I'll try and explain where I'm going. If I centre mount this on this, it's a spindle, and to start with I've just got to run a drill bit through either end, which means centering this up so I can put it on this spiral. As soon as I drill out for the battery capacity, for the battery end with this big old bugger, I can't put it on here. It's going to flop around like a good one. So I need to look at how I can then hold that in place. One way of doing it would be to use two, I've got to sort of jam it in a fixed, which I'd have to get another. This one won't do it. This is a tailstock, but that would go straight in the lathe to hold one end while the other end revolves. There's a lot of thinking to do. I think to start with, to get it round, because that gives me the most flexibility, what I'm going to do is round this off to start with. So I'm going to get it mounted on the pen mandrel. Now I know it looks like that won't fit, but this here has an adjustable collar, and the centre post on this can move in and out once I've got it in the jaws. We'll show you how we mount that up a little bit later. First thing I'm going to have to do is get my big old set of jaws mounted on the chuck. I've got to then centre up this. I'm just going to literally be aligning from corner to corner, To start with, I'm going to have to mount that in the jaws and drill from this side. As you can see, it's not going to go deep enough. Take it out, spin it and drill it again, and hopefully the two holes, if I get my centering right, are going to meet up. I'm going to get these on, get it on the lathe. We'll pop over and hopefully have a look at where we're going. I'm happy for input because at the moment we've got a blank canvas. I haven't got the clone hasn't arrived yet. I want to narrow or taper down one end to 22mm to take this. Now as you can see, I've got to drill out 22mm. So once this is round, 22mm, it's not going to take, you know, much playing with. I think this one's going to be relatively quickly. It'll be a relatively quick job. Once the turning's done, it's going to be a case of inserting the battery tube, which will have the bottom switch on, and we can go from there. But should be, I reckon, a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks tops, and we should have this one nailed, polished and done. He says that, it might take longer. But yeah, this is the one I'm worried about because I've got to get my cavity, and as you can see, that doesn't leave much room. And when you start drilling these, you start building up heat. When you build up heat in acrylic, it warps. And I'm nervous about this stuff. This stuff is you've got to work it very, very slowly to get it right. I'm going to pop back in two. Okay, so we're over the lathe. I've positioned the acrylic in. I've just crossed off the end so I can get a rough centre on this, and I'm just tightening that up. As you can see, it's with these new jaws on, the grip is so much better. I just get the spin. You might want to avoid your ears for 2 seconds. Now I know that looks really stupid to do, but the reason I'm doing that is so I can just test how this is spinning, and you can feel if it's not spinning true. I'm just going to change over to the drill bit. I'll be back into. Okay, so I've switched out to a drill bit. I'm going with a 5mm just to start with because I know that will fit on the mandrel. This is all centered up. I've got my drill in place. I'm just going to start this and start feeding the bit in. And I'm just bringing that in and out and clearing some of these shavings off as I'm going. And when you get to the, if you like, the extent of your chuck, you have to back it out. Hey, you might have to excuse me because I might knock the camera. Take the bit in and continue with the drilling process. Sorry, I'm just tripod's in the way. Now that's the extent of what I can do that end. I'm just going to take it out, spin it round and position it up on the other side. And I've just literally finished it off and I've broke through. So hopefully I should have gone right through this blank now out the other side. So you can see be relatively straight. I'm just going to test that while I'm here. And you can see my dodgy tracksuit bottoms is just, you know, apologies. So I might have to, I know I'm going to have to take this out a bit further. I've got my first hole through, drill it out, and then I'll get it mounted on a mandrel. I just need to take this out a little bit further. Okay, so what we've done is run about 6.5mm, and I got bitten by the old mandrel. I didn't realise there was a sharp chunk of metal, and as I picked it up, it dug in my thumb. I've just super glued that shut so it's not dripping everywhere. I shouldn't do that, but it works. So yes, I've centrally mounted this now on the mandrel, which effectively is just going to hold that in place so I can work the whole length of material as I'm going. To get this on the lathe, I just need to release my chuck, and because this is the same. It's what they call an MT2 threading. I've got an MT2 head on here, which I can literally just drive home. On the other end, I'm going to put another MT2 fit in, which is a rotating centre, and effectively what that will do is butt up to, which you can only just see in shot, butt up to here and keep everything spinning centrally, so I can start chiseling away. Now I'm just going to bring this in. Apologies you can't see this, but I need to get on the blank more than anything. So I'm just going to bring that in, excuse the camera, lock that off so it's nice and tight. It's difficult working on the lathe, and I'm just going to nip that home tight and tighten up my nut, and I'm just going to test spin that. Again, running true. The reason I use, let me just turn that off. The reason I use my hands test, that if it's not running true, you start with your fingers here will be a gentle wobble. By the time you get this end, they're flapping down like a good one. Now that shows you something is out of kilter. I'm going to bring in my tool rest now, and I'm going to put a corner up, and I'm going to just position that as close to it as I can, and it is literally a couple of mil between that and this spinning. See, you heard that knock, so you can hear there's one corner just making contact. I'm going to take it out a tad more. I'm going to tighten that off there, so I should be able to free spin now on this blank. I'm just going to grab my tool now for this particular material. Whereas normally I would use a tungsten carbide, in this I'm using, if you like, a HSS, it's a TI bit, and this stuff cuts a damn sight easier on here. I'm just going to go now and just start taking this down a little bit. Next week we'll be doing a lot more on here. I need to work out where the camera's going to go, and I might need to change the tracky bottoms. These are workshop tracky bottoms. I've got goggles on. Should always have goggles on. Chipping away at one of these things, and we'll start whittling away at a little bit of it. And as you can see, this stuff comes off like bloody snow. It's horrible stuff. And you have to take it slow with this. If you don't take it slow and you just gouge into this stuff, it will literally shatter to buggery. Goes everywhere. Time to get a mask. As you can see, look, this is only literally just, I don't know how far, I might be able to get down in the corner, just taking edges off, literally taking the edges off. What I might do is just give it another couple of goes, and then what I'm going to do is put a respirator on, because this stuff generates so much dust. I'll tell you the sort of thing that I'm working with, working on this material is one of those, a big proper mask. This stuff is horrible. You should not turn that really without having the proper stuff on your face, which I will do very shortly. It's just hard to talk through one. There we go. I'm absolutely getting sandblasted to hell. My face is looking like this at this moment in time. So I'm going to go and suit up properly. Turn this down, and next week we'll come back where this should be perfectly round, and we'll start thinking about how we're going to get 22mm in and to be able to make it stable to do t'other end and all that sort of stuff. The starts. New project, liking. Thank you for choosing the acrylic. As you can see, this stuff will finish up a damn sight better once we get away at the chipping phase. But chipping phase needs to be done first. I'll be back next week, back to Marco in studio.
So there you go. Yes, and I have to say, you lot in chat are very naughty, wanting blood all the time. Poor Mr. Dibley had to super glue his finger. I've had super glue on a cut, actually. I smashed my face with 2 spanners under a sink, tightening up some compression fittings, and I smacked myself in the face with a spanner. Ended up having it super glued, which was stingy, but it was okay. So, Gary, over to you for about 10 seconds and let us know what the next step on that mod is going to be.
Rounding, trimming, doofering, inserting, and all that sort of stuff. That's it. I don't know.
There you go. Right, we're just very slightly over time, so let us wrap this week's show up. Don't forget that tomorrow night, it being Wednesday, it's The Cave with Matt Garrish. And then on Thursday, it's Dave Dawn with Keith and The Pocket for the Haze Hour. Sunday, of course, it's Mr. Dave Kitson with Dave's Tackle Box. And then Monday, it's the boys, Andy and Davey with Drips and Tips. And myself and Gary will be here again next Tuesday. Now, don't forget, also, you can tune into RY4 Radio every night of the week for loads of entertainment. And on next week's show, we will have the bit of VT that we've knocked off tonight because we had this Scottish thing. And also, I'm going down to see Nigel Quinn at T-Juice at the weekend. So hopefully, I'll bring you the VT from that as well. So it just remains to be said. Let's get Gary on the shot. There we go. We will see you next week. Have a good week. We'll see you in chat. Goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Tatty bye.
Have a good one, guys.
Cheers.
Vaper Scene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.